Once upon a time, there lived a woman who became a grandmother at the age when most people were still trying to figure out their lives. Her name was Bella, and she was 29 years old. Yes, just 29, and she was already a grandmother. Bella had given birth to her daughter when she was only 14 years old. Now, that same daughter, whose name is Sammy, was about to give birth at the age of 15, which meant that Bella had officially been promoted to a Gen Z grandmother. The whole drama started in the hospital the day Sammy went into labor. The nurses were running up and down as the doctors attended to her, trying to see how fast she was dilating. One nurse carried medical trays, whilst another prepped the delivery room. Everything looked so serious, except one person, Bella. Instead of looking worried like a normal mother would, Bella was standing in the hospital, holding her phone as she recorded a video for her TikTok. Guys, she whispered into the camera, "This is literally the craziest thing ever." She flipped the camera to herself. "Your girl is about to become a grandmother at 29. A nurse nearly dropped the tray that she was holding. "Madam, this is not the time for videos." But Bella looked at her calmly and said, "Auntie, relax, Joe. Nobody is dying." From inside the labor room, Sammy screamed out in pain, "Mommy, I can't do this." But Bella shouted back at her through the door, "Relax, Joe. Women have been doing this since 1800. Try." The nurses stared at her in disbelief as they began to whisper amongst themselves, "Is this the mother or the younger sister?" Because instead of praying like a typical Nigerian mother, Bella was sitting outside the labor room, eating shawarma and updating her WhatsApp status. "Grandma loading. Stay tuned, girlies," the status read as comments began to flood in like rain. Inside the labor room, however, Sammy screamed over and over, pleading for her mother to pray for her. But Bella, instead of praying like other mothers would, said something that shocked everyone to their bones. She closed her eyes for a few seconds and she began to speak out to the hearing of everyone present. "Dear God, make me the hottest grandmother to ever live," she said as the nurses almost choked in shock. They stared at her for a few minutes as they realized that Bella was truly not a conventional grandmother, the type who would almost bring down the hospital with her prayers, the one whose main concern was ensuring that her daughter and grandchild survived the painful birth. Rather, she was the one taking pictures and doing videos, whilst her own daughter battled for her dear life. Many could not imagine the kind of grandmother that she would be, but the hospital was about to find out. Just then, another loud scream came from the labor room as her daughter finally gave birth to twins. Bella froze as she tried to understand what she had just heard. "Wait, what did you just say?" she asked the nurse, who smiled brightly and congratulated her for being a grandmother of twins. For a moment, the entire hospital corridor became quiet. Then Bella screamed at the top of her lungs, "Twins!" Bella shouted again, grabbing her head. "God, I beg, who did I offend?" The nurse laughed and placed the two tiny babies into Bella's shaking arms. "Congratulations, madam," she said happily. "You're now the grandmother of two bouncing baby boys." Bella looked down at the babies like someone holding two fragile grenades. One of them suddenly sneezed. Bella jumped. "Jesus!" She quickly stretched the babies back towards the nurse. "Auntie, I beg, collect them first. Let me process this information." But the nurse shook her head. "No, madam. Start practicing. You'll be doing omugwo soon." Bella blinked slowly. "Omugwo?" "Yes. You will stay with your daughter and take care of the babies." Bella laughed, a loud, confused laughter. "You people are joking, right?" But the nurse was not smiling, and that was when Bella remembered something that made her stomach suddenly turn. For all the noise she was making, Bella actually had no idea how to take care of babies. Because the truth was this: when Bella got pregnant at 14, she was still a child herself. Her mother had taken over everything. Her mother bathed Sammy. She fed Sammy. She carried Sammy on her back. Her mother woke up every night when Sammy cried. Bella simply continued living her teenage life like nothing had happened, and her mother did it happily until 1 year ago, when her mother suddenly passed away. Bella swallowed hard as a memory flashed through her mind. That was the first time that she truly realized how much her mother had done for her. But now, life had come to collect the debt. 3 days later, the babies were discharged from the hospital, and that was when the real drama began. The first night at home, one of the babies started crying. Bella looked around the room nervously. Sammy, your baby is crying, no. Sammy, still weak from childbirth, groaned from the bed. Mommy, carry him now. Bella looked at the baby like it was a mathematics exam. How? Sammy sighed. Mommy, just pick him up. Bella slowly lifted the baby. Immediately, the baby cried louder. Why is he shouting like this now? The second baby joined the crying. Now, both babies were screaming. Bella turned in circles inside the room. Sammy, something is wrong with them. Sammy groaned. Mommy, they are hungry. Bella froze. How do you know? Sammy stared at her. Mommy, this is what babies do. Bella rushed to the kitchen and brought the baby formula. She stared at the instruction on the tin like it was a foreign language. 2 scoops, warm water. She turned to Sammy. Which scoop? The one inside the tin, Mommy. Sammy replied as Bella opened the tin. There were 3 scoops. By the time she finally mixed the milk, both babies had cried so much that the neighbors were knocking on the door. One old woman entered the house. What is happening here? She saw Bella holding one baby upside down while shaking the bottle. The old woman gasped. You don't hold babies like that. Turn that baby properly. Bella looked embarrassed. Auntie, I'm still learning. The woman stared at her in disbelief. You get bed before now. Bella scratched her head. Yes, ma, but my mother did everything. The woman shook her head slowly. That is why elders are important. That night, Bella did not sleep. One baby slept. The other cried. When the second one slept, the first one woke up. Bella could not sleep. She realized in that moment that taking care of babies was not as easy as she thought. It was a full-time war that she was not even prepared for. By the second day, Bella was already looking for shortcuts because in her mind, there had to be a Gen Z solution to this ancient parenting problem. So the first thing she did was open Google. She typed slowly, fastest way to take care of babies without stress. Several articles appeared, but Bella ignored them immediately. Instead, she clicked on a video titled, Lazy Parenting Hacks. Bella's eyes widened as she finally saw what she was looking for. The first video was diaper hacks, one for lazy mothers, and Bella watched the video as if her life depended on it. The hack suggested that she first wraps the baby's bottom in plastic bag before wearing him a diaper. According to the one in the video, it will prevent the diaper from getting dirty too quickly. Bella's eyes widened in excitement. Genius, she said as she clapped her hands softly. This woman deserves an award. Immediately, Bella ran to the kitchen and grabbed 2 small nylon bags. She returned to the babies like a scientist about to conduct an important experiment. Today, we work smart, she said to herself as she carefully wrapped the first baby's bottom in the nylon bag. Then, she wore the diaper on top of it. She stepped back proudly. Perfect! Just perfect! Then she repeated the same thing for the second twin. Bella folded her arms and admired her work like an engineer inspecting a completed building. Efficiency, she nodded to herself. Now, the diaper will stay clean, she said as she looked so satisfied. Bella sat down to finally rest her tired body. For the first time since the babies arrived, the room was completely quiet. The twins slept peacefully. Bella leaned back on the couch and smiled. Finally, I can now rest. But 2 hours later, something strange began to happen. One of the babies started moving restlessly. Then he began to cry. Bella walked over calmly. Relax now. She carried him gently, but immediately she noticed something odd. The baby's clothes felt wet. Very, very wet. Bella frowned. That's strange. She checked the diaper. Clean, as she blinked and asked herself how this was possible. But the baby's clothes were still soaked. She looked confused. Where's this water coming from? Then suddenly the smell hit her. Bella froze in complete shock. Slowly, she removed the diaper, and what she saw made her scream. The plastic bag had wrapped everything inside. The diaper was clean, but everything else had leaked out around the sides. The baby's clothes, the blanket, Bella's shirt, even the couch. Bella stood there in horror. The baby began to cry even louder. The second twin woke up and began crying too. Bella quickly rushed to remove his diaper as well. Same disaster. The plastic bag had turned the diaper into a useless decoration. Everything had escaped. She held both babies at arm's length, like someone carrying 2 leaking water balloons. In that moment, she had no option but to discard the hack. seeing that changing a soiled diaper way better than washing soiled clothes. However, she did not give up as she continued to watch hacks that she believed would make her life easy. That evening, as she was bathing the babies, Bella realized that bath time had become another battle. The moment she poured water on the baby, he screamed as Bella stared at him tiredly. Why are you people behaving like this now? Said as an idea came to her mind. Instead of bathing them one after the other, Bella placed both babies inside a large plastic basin as she decided to bathe the two babies at once. This will save me stress, she said as she cleaned them one after the other. For a moment, the babies were quiet as she smiled proudly, believing that she had found the perfect solution. However, one of the babies pooped on himself as the other followed suit and pooped on himself as well. Bella stood there speechless as she thought of running away. It was as if the babies had ganged up against her, and Bella knew that there was no winning in that instant. For a few seconds, she simply stared at the basin. Two babies, two fresh disasters, one very tired grandmother. Bella slowly placed both hands on her head. God, what did I get myself into? She looked up at the ceiling like someone filing a serious complaint. I know I said make me the hottest grandmother, but this is not what I meant, she said as she accepted her fate. Later that evening, Bella rushed online to search for other hacks. She came across a video that promised to give the best hacks for feeding babies. Bella clicked on the video immediately, knowing how she struggles to feed the babies. The video revealed that parents should prepare several bottles of milk in advance to avoid stressing themselves whenever the babies cry. Bella did not bother watching the video to the end as she quickly picked up the baby bottles and began to prepare the milk. All she had was prepare the milk and put them in the fridge to chill. Bella clapped her hands happily as she went into the kitchen and prepared 6 bottles of baby milk. Then she lined them proudly on the table, about to pop them into the fridge. However, what Bella did not realize was that babies do not take cold milk. She brought one out of the fridge some hours later and popped it into the baby's mouth. The moment the cold milk hit the baby's tongue, he screamed like someone whose butt had been whipped with a big koboko. Bella stared at him in confusion as she wondered what the problem was. Little did she know that she was supposed to heat the milk before feeding. If only she watched the full video, she would have seen this, but her impatience got the better part of her as usual. So she tried again, but the baby screamed louder than the first. Her daughter Sammy walked out of her bedroom and met her giving the baby cold milk. Her expression changed as she asked her mother what she was doing feeding her baby cold milk. Babies don't take cold milk, she said to Bella, who sat there stunned as she looked at the bottle in her hand. But the video said that preparing the milk early saves stress, Bella muttered as Sammy stared at the 6 bottles neatly arranged inside the fridge. Then she looked back at her mother, her tired face slowly contorting in anger as she began to speak. Mommy, are you serious right now? You're feeding my baby cold milk and you're wondering why he's screaming? Bella felt something tighten inside her chest. I didn't know, she said quietly as her daughter Sammy laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't know. You never know anything. The words fell into the room like stones as Bella froze and watched her daughter tell her a piece of her mind, her frustration spilling out like volcano. You are always clueless, mother, she said as Bella lowered the bottle. Mommy, do you even know how to take care of yourself? Sammy asked as Bella opened her mouth wide in shock. No wonder Grandma did everything, because she knew how incompetent you were, she said as Bella felt the words pierce through her like a knife. For a moment, the entire room went silent, except for the baby's cries. Sammy was breathing heavily now. You were never really my mother, and I wish Grandma was alive, she said as Bella looked up sharply. You were just there, living your life, whilst Grandma took care of me. The words hung heavily in the air as Bella's hands began to tremble slightly. Sammy did not realize how deep her words had gone. She was only a tired 15-year-old girl who had just given birth. But Bella felt as if the ground had suddenly disappeared beneath her feet because those words touched the exact wound that she had carried for 15 years, the wound she had never spoken about. Bella stood up and placed the baby back in Sammy's arms. Her voice was calm, but something inside it had broken. You're right. Sammy looked at her as Bella forced a small smile. I didn't know how to take care of you. She turned away slowly and walked towards the kitchen. Sammy stood there silently as she held the baby. For the first time, she noticed something strange. Her mother's shoulders looked heavy, like someone carrying an invisible weight. Bella leaned on the kitchen counter quietly. Her eyes were filled with tears that she refused to let fall, because the truth was painful. She had spent 15 years pretending she was strong, pretending that the past did not matter, pretending that she had moved on. But in that moment, her daughter had unknowingly said the one thing Bella feared the most, that she had failed as a mother. Bella wiped her face quickly before turning back. "Give me the baby," she said gently as Sammy hesitated, but eventually handed the baby to her. Bella took the bottle, walked to the kettle and warmed the milk properly. Then she fed the baby slowly. The child drank peacefully this time. Bella watched him quietly. Then she whispered softly, "I may not know everything, but I'm trying," she said as Sammy watched her return to her room with the babies. She stayed up all night as the babies woke up at intervals and kept her awake. By morning, she looked like someone who had wrestled a lion. Her hair was scattered, her eyes red, as she picked up her phone weakly and made a TikTok video. "Omugwo is not for the weak-hearted," she said as she held one of the babies in her hand and recorded the video. People laughed and hailed her as the youngest grandma to ever exist. In fact, the post went viral as thousands of people began to share it across their social media pages. Within hours, Bella's phone began to buzz non-stop. Comments began to pour in like rain. People could not believe that a 29-year-old single woman was now a grandmother. Some began to bash her as they questioned her life decisions, calling her a bad role model for her daughter. "You had a child at 14, and now your daughter too at 15? This is not funny," they said as they advised her to stop making TikTok videos and go raise her family. At first, Bella laughed at the comments. She even replied some, asking the people to mind their business. However, the more she scrolled through her feed, the heavier her chest began to feel, because hidden inside those cruel comments was the truth that she had been running away from for years. That night, the babies cried non-stop as Bella sat on the edge of her bed and tears poured down her eyes. Her body was exhausted, but the words from the internet kept echoing in her mind. Bad role model, generational failure. Bella sighed quietly. For the first time since the babies arrived, she did not pick up her phone. She just sat there in silence as her daughter Sammy walked in to sit with her. She had seen all the comments online and came to check on her mother. She noticed how broken her mother was and asked a question that she never got to ask all her life. "Who is my father?" she asked her mother Bella, who looked at her for some seconds and began to speak. She revealed that years ago, her mother brought a distant relative to come live in their home. His name was Kalu, and he was 17 at the time. His parents had died and left him all alone in the village, so her mother, being so kind and compassionate, decided to bring him into her home. This was the beginning of something that no one in the house ever imagined would destroy their very lives. At first, Kalu behaved like an elder brother. He helped Bella with her homework. He walked her to school. He even protected her from boys who tried to tease her on the road. Bella was only 14 then. To her, Kalu was simply the cool older cousin who bought her snacks and made her laugh. But slowly, something changed. Kalu began to treat her differently. He started complimenting her. "You're becoming a beautiful woman," he would say. At first, Bella thought nothing of it. But one evening, when her mother had gone to the market, Kalu called her into the sitting room. He told her he loved her. Bella laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, but Kalu insisted. He told her that she was the only one who understood him, that one day he would marry her. Bella was too young to understand what those words meant. She was only a teenage girl who had never heard anyone say those things to her. So she believed him. Her voice trembled as she spoke to her daughter Sammy. He kept saying it was our little secret. Bella whispered. Sammy sat frozen beside her as she continued slowly. One night, everything changed. The room fell silent as Bella wiped her eyes. When I realized I was pregnant, I was terrified. I told Kalu, but he denied everything. He said I was lying. Sammy's chest tightened as her mother's eyes filled with tears. He told my mother that I was trying to destroy his life, and although my mother believed me, the whole family took his side. They said I was a disgrace and labeled me a wild girl who was trying to ruin the life of a promising young man. Her voice cracked as tears continued to pour down her eyes. Only my mother believed me, but the shame broke her heart in a way that I never imagined. Kalu left the house the next morning and died in an accident that people blamed us for. So, my mother kept me away from her people as she decided to care for you herself. She knew I was still a child, so she allowed me to continue living like one. She carried you on her back every day, bathed you, fed you, and woke up every night when you cried. Sometimes, I'll be asleep while she stayed awake rocking you to sleep. Sammy's eyes filled with tears as she listened to her mother speak. I went to school like nothing had happened. I laughed with my friends. I even complained when life felt difficult. But my mother carried the shame alone. That is why I never told you the full story. I didn't want you to grow up feeling like you were a mistake. Sammy shook her head quickly. I was never a mistake, mother. I know that now, she said as she hugged her mother tightly and promised to do better. Sammy, for the first time, noticed something that she had never seen before. Her mother was not careless. She was not unserious. She was simply learning all the things that life had forced her to skip. And in that moment, Sammy suddenly felt a deep wave of guilt wash over her. So she went online and told her story, how she lost her grandmother who took care of her for all these years. Life became so empty as she began to make friends with people who she was not supposed to be friends with. Her friends were all dating secretly as they mocked her for being childish. Trying so hard to prove that she was mature, she entered a relationship that resulted in her pregnancy. Although the boy did not reject the pregnancy, his family sent him far away to another state so that the shame of the situation would not fall on their household. She told the people how her mother, the one who they constantly bashed online, made a mistake at 14 and was trying so hard to be a good mother and grandmother. She told them how she stays up all night looking after the twins, something that she had never done in her life. Sammy then asked the people a question that made them all rethink their lives. Is it fair to condemn someone for a mistake they made as a child while ignoring the efforts they are making today? She asked as she ended the video, leaving the people in their thoughts. Several comments came through as people began to applaud Bella for the wonderful work that she was doing. They bashed the men and their families for what they did as people began to advise them to act better. Sammy finally understood the weight her mother had carried for so many years, because sometimes the people we think failed us were only surviving battles we never knew they fought. From that day on, Sammy never again took her mother's efforts for granted. She began to notice the small things that her mother did, the sleepless nights, the quiet patience, the way she carried the babies, even when her back ached and her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. Instead of seeing her as the careless young mother that she once believed her to be, Sammy began to see the truth. Bella had been a child forced to grow up too quickly, learning motherhood while she was still learning herself. And so, together they raised the twins, not as two broken generations repeating the same mistakes, but as two women determined to heal what the past had wounded, proving that sometimes the strongest families are the ones who choose to grow, forgive, and begin again. The lesson to be learned from this story is that life does not always give people the chance to grow at the right time, and sometimes those we judge the most harshly, we are only trying to survive the storms they face too early. It teaches us that understanding someone's past can soften our hearts, that forgiveness can heal wounds, that silence cannot, and that cycles of pain can be broken when one generation chooses compassion over blame. Most importantly, it reminds us that no one is born knowing how to be a parent. They learn along the way, and sometimes the greatest love is simply the courage to keep trying, even when you feel like you are